And then he was racing, he would actually open the valve coming off turn 1 down the main stretch and actually flood the motor.
Wow.
Overflow the needle and seat. So we got more gas through our carburetor than we were supposed to.
Hey, welcome back to Barry T's Garage. We've got another session of questions and answers and opinions with Ed. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning.
All right.
I know chilly this morning.
It is a little chilly in Arizona here.
This morning. We don't have much heat here.
No, you're managing to stay.
We should have saved some from summer.
That's right. We're waiting for the snowbirds to come and warm us up.
Yeah, I hope so.
As usual, we had a lot of questions from people watching our previous videos, and it's wonderful that they ask us questions. So I thought, well, let's get some more together. We'll print them out, and I'll ask Ed, and we'll see either answers to technical questions or opinions on things you think about.
Try that.
Okay, let's give it a try. When we did the dyno testing, and you just happened to mention that the way you figure out where to cut the exhaust pipes was to put some paint down, and where it burns off, you leave it. Where it stops, where the paint's still there, you cut it off.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so people didn't always understand how that was, how that worked. So as one guy says, this is a great trick. We've been doing it ourselves in dirt track racing for 40 years. We use crayons. Same thing. Super simple, common sense. Have you used crayons sometimes?
No, crayons in Arizona don't work so well.
Right.
I just tell him, it's kind of funny. So when we was in school, when I was in grade school, we used crayons, but usually we put them on the hot water heaters on this thing, and then the janitor didn't like that either.
No, bad. So that was a prank on the janitor.
Yeah, right, yeah. So we don't use them in Arizona. We couldn't even hardly warm the car up and be on the ground.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
Okay. All right, so the next, someone else asked, or said they heard, that if you're building a street car and not for racing, that it's also a good place to put the cross pipe or H pipe.
Probably so, same place.
Same kind of an idea.
Yeah, I think the H pipe, of course, we own exhaust shops, and we would put H pipes forever.
Yep.
And then we knew that Chrysler, back in the 1960s, the 413 with the cross ram had an H pipe in it.
Okay.
And then also the same thing with the Ford 429 Mustangs, I think had an H pipe in them.
Okay.
And so that H pipes in those cars helped to equalize the exhaust and help the car go over. That Chrysler, 100 miles an hour, just kept pulling.
Okay.
And it also, we always told the people with the motorhomes with dual exhaust with the H pipe, it'd pull up the hill better.
Interesting.
Maybe in second gear at 40, 45 miles an hour, it had that extra torque and pull the big motorhome right up the hill. That's what it all helped.
So somehow it helped with torque, I guess.
Well, the torque and it kept that exhaust one siphon from the other one.
Okay.
There's some back pressures in there that it took away.
Interesting.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, so I guess, and this is something I don't know much about the science. The little I've understood is there's something about the exhaust pulses that help
yes,
the
absolutely,
exhaust.
yeah.
So an exhaust with headers or with an exhaust system is going to run better than an open.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And even we had a few cars years ago. It was quite a thing. We put all of them in one single collector pipe under the transmission straight out by the drive shaft if the car was jacked up a little bit.
Okay.
And we saw all 8 pipes into one pipe.
Wow, I've never seen that.
Yeah, and that, you'd think you was going 10, 12,000 RPMs. Well, it would sound like that for sure. And that would pull a lot.
Interesting.
Like I mentioned before, that 6-cylinder Falcon I had, I raced for years and years and old national records and stuff on them. Even though the headers looked like equal lengths, it was a 6-cylinder. And I made a loop in them and run them all out one pipe.
Really?
Underneath it, and the pipe was maybe 3 feet long, like a collector on a motorcycle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it took that mid RPM bog right out of the car as soon as I put that 2 collectors on there.
Really? So it helped the mid-range of the engine?
Yes, the mid-range, nothing on the low end.
Huh, okay.
Yeah. The same way with a motorcycle.
Okay.
That collector, I have a guy I know down here just a mile south of here that makes those collector pipes. He's got quite a business. He's got a dyno for motorcycles and ATVs, and he makes those pipes. And it looks like he took a bunch of armadillos and all welded them together, that collector pipe. And collector, he makes a little bitty small tailpipe of that collector. And that thing really puts out horsepower.
Wow.
But that's a whole bunch of different thoughts on that, on the motorcycle, the 2-cycle motors.
Oh, of
And
course.
so that's all a part of it.
Because it's 2-cycle, it's a little different math probably.
Yes, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there we go. That was a fun little diversion.
Yeah,
that's good. All right, next question. We're sliding over because, we take the questions as they come. They come in different order.
Okay.
Next one is about flat tappet lifters. And that is, why do people ever use flat tappet lifters? Why wouldn't they use roller lifters?
Usually the RPMs.
Okay.
That has to do with it. And then it depends on the lift and duration.
Okay.
We used to have a camshaft that it was my own design, and I got a camshaft company in California to make it for us.
Okay.
And because we couldn't put roller lifters in this particular motor.
Because of rules?
No.
Oh, okay.
It just wouldn't design.
Okay,
wouldn't fit in there. It just didn't. There's no way to do it.
Okay.
Unless we. But anyways, the lift in the camshaft was so tall that those flat tappet came around and actually dug into that hill.
Oh, it wouldn't ride up.
Yeah, it wouldn't ride up.
Okay.
And then the duration, we wanted it to be a certain amount that, of course, it was a Ford, so it had a wider lifter, and we could get that duration of that camshaft sliding across that top lifter before it hold the old valve open. That was all okay.
Okay.
And the motor really did run good.
Okay.
But I go through a camshaft probably every 2 months.
Ah.
And I knew it was going to happen. And the grinder that knew us, but we'd wear that camshaft out because it dug in there.
Interesting.
And a roller cam would roll right up and go right over it.
Okay.
But we couldn't do that.
So as a general rule,
certain RPMs and lifts, and now almost all the new engines have got rollers cams.
Yeah.
They run better, and it rolls up the lifters until they kind of start coming apart.
Right.
And once they start coming apart, the little bearings in that roller, once they start coming apart or something for some reason, and I think our LS motors are having that trouble today too.
So the roller lifters, I got you.
Much more trouble-free.
Okay.
And depends on the camshaft and stuff, yeah.
Aggressive, gigantic, loping potatoes.
Not supposed to do that.
Not supposed to do it. That's not ideal.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
Okay. I remember you telling me that.
This motor behind me might do a little loping.
Yeah.
I think this one here might.
Yeah.
But that's designed to do that, and we can't help that either.
Right. That's going to be the way it is.
Yeah, that's the way it's going.
Next question is on the 454. Big block Chevy. Hey, I've got me an 87 454, and I keep hearing about oil pump issues. And now you say there's oiling issues. That would be nice to get an in-depth video for the process of setting up a 454 just for reliability, just a 454 reliability. Are there any thoughts you have just sitting here? Obviously, we don't have a 454 in front of us right now. But are there any oiling issues you can think of for those?
Oil issues of it?
Yeah.
There's always, we haven't ended up with that little, I don't know whether oil issues, but that's that whole motor, the 396 block, that motor's all the same.
Okay.
And then I remember when the first ones came out, they had a special cam bearing in the back, but that's the only 396s.
Yeah.
And then Chevrolet come out with a bulletin that some of the lifters made a little noise, and when they first come out with 396s, again, it's the same block assembly.
Okay.
And you'd take the oil galley in front, the oil galley plug in, and drill a little hole in it.
Right.
Maybe even a 20,000ths hole.
Okay.
Just let the air out of that was trapped up in the front of that oil galley somewhere.
Right. But nothing about the oil pump or things like that?
Not anything about the oil pump.
Okay.
Oil pump does pump a lot of oil.
Yeah.
It is a bigger motor, bigger volume, a longer motor.
Right.
And deeper motor, and a lot more than a small block Chevy.
Sure.
So it takes a bigger volume of thing, and of course the screen's bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And where it sucks more air, much more oil, and things like this. And we've had some that I don't know what the problem was. Somewhere we had one on the back of the motor behind the flywheel, and tapped into the main oil galley, and ran tubing, like small tubings, between that main oil galley up to each one of the oil galleys.
Oh.
So we put the extra pipe in the back.
Huh.
And then sometimes I've seen a guy go between the oil galley under the intake manifold and drill it and put an extra pipe in there, a little tubing, to get more oil in a particular area for some reason. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they just use more oil in that upper engine. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, but
All
no
right.
problems.
But generally, just a well-built 454 is really pretty
it's
good.
a good motor. Yeah.
Okay. Venting the motor into the exhaust.
Pressure in the motor. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the not EGR valve. No, it would be the exhaust.
ECV?
Exhaust valve. Well, the PVC is a small thing. It's just a 3/8 pipe or something.
Yeah, right.
Usually that don't carry much volume.
Okay.
Then they end up with some of the OEM motors, original equipment stuff, had that valve that they dumped it into the exhaust.
Right.
It was a one-way valve. It's got a little canister with a hose on it, maybe even a 3/4 inch, like a 3/4 inch heater hose type thing. And that's what suck all the air out and evacuate through the exhaust.
Okay.
And then clear all the pressure off the top of the motor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I guess just like those exhaust pulses we were talking about earlier, that exhaust would maybe just suck it out. Maybe.
It sucked it out, sure. It was already at an angle.
Yeah.
The pipe was always at an angle siphon. We used to put some of those on, and even if your engine came with that originally, you had to have it on there to run the emissions.
Right.
And they'd fail you if you didn't have that exhaust valve in there.
Okay.
So we would put a piece of, sometimes we would pick a piece of electric conduit and cut a hole in the pipe and run it at a certain angle, and then put that nut on there. It was all screwed, that valve screwed on there. And put the hose on it back in.
So you've done those things.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Jeeps and stuff had them.
We were someone else was asking about oil pumping and the extra big oil pans at different RPMs. You need a bigger oil pan, I guess. And someone was saying they were using a rule of thumb of 1 quart per 1,000 RPM of an engine you run. Does that sound about right? If you're going to run 8,000 RPM, you better have 8 quarts?
No, I don't think so.
No?
Almost. It's always good. We run 6-7 quarts oil pan, and we ran 8,000 RPM. It's the whole design of the pan.
Okay.
That's the main thing. And then even our engines, well, if you're getting into that kind of motor, that's the motor that you ground and shined up, polished around the valve covers and inside the chambers on the block itself.
Okay.
And made it smoother. And that's when you ground down the return holes and the cylinder heads and make sure they all lined up and that port down by the camshaft so the oil returns better. And then paint it Rust-Oleum.
Right.
Most of the motors are painted so the oil returns in the pan instead of staying up on top.
Okay.
And sometimes, and even the new aluminum motors, it's hard to do that a little bit. And the aluminum motors these nowadays got so many cavities in the block itself and in the heads. It would trap oil and little cavities in it, so you make sure that all those drain.
Right.
If you have some of those cavities, so that's fairly easy to do with an LS motor or something to keep that oil in the oil pan.
Right. Keep it moving.
Keep it moving. Keep it in the pan. Same time when we run our rod bearing side clearance a little bit better. Instead of keeping that oil up in the crankshaft and the rod bearing, the side clearance was 30, 40,000, so that oil don't stay in the rod bearing. It goes to the pan. It cools off and comes back around cold.
Okay. Excellent.
And the next thing, if you start that many RPMs like a sprint car, it's all dry sump.
Right, right.
Yeah, and you got a big can over there at the side.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I have two people on the subject of the Ford 300 cubic inch 6, that big inline 6-cylinder.
Okay.
Some people are fans of it.
They are. That's a good motor. It only lasts 300,000 or 400,000.
Yeah, they can apparently go.
Yeah, forever.
Yeah.
If you just change the oil in it, it'd be good to it. Yeah.
Okay. 6 in a row, ready to tow, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's someone says, on my 300-inch 6-cylinder, I want to set it to a 0-degree camshaft timing with offset keys because I can't buy a timing set except for the stock cam timing. Would Ed or a machine shop be able to machine my spare timing gears for 0 degrees, or how would you suggest doing that?
He wants to advance the camshaft.
Yeah, I guess so.
Above that. I don't know where his camshaft is now. I don't know.
Yeah, setting it to 0 from what? We don't know.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
He has to find out where it's at in the first place.
Okay.
Do a little checking out there on the lifters.
Okay.
And then basically, if you want to start out there, there's a big story about that, where you want to put it back on compression and put a straight edge across the first 2 lifters, exhaust and intake, and see if they're exactly the same height.
Okay.
That'd tell you if the camshaft base circle was the same height.
Oh, okay.
Because sometimes the base circle, that's the center of the camshaft, the core.
Right.
And if whoever ground the cam, if you happen to grind it where that base circle is a little bit lower than the other, well, you got to take that in consideration.
Okay.
So, and your first thing is put it up on split overlap once compression, firing, that both valves are closed. You put a straight edge across the intake and exhaust, a small straight edge, and just make sure they don't rock back and forth.
Okay. To
make sure that the base circle straight. Then you can go from there. Then you crank it over on both valves are open.
Okay.
On that split overlap again instead of compression.
Yeah.
And you do it again, with tying out of the intake valve, intake lifter is higher than the exhaust. And that'll tell you if it's advanced or not.
Okay.
That's right there. Now you can go to work on it. But somehow you may change the keyway, the broach.
Oh, interesting.
Broach the gear, not necessarily mess around with the keyway.
Okay.
But the gear itself has got a key in it. If it does, I'm not sure. I don't think it's got a dowel pin.
Okay. So if it has a keyway, you could fill in that keyway and
no, don't fill it in. Just go to another one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I see. Yeah, go somewhere else.
Just move it somewhere else and line the gears up a little bit different.
I see.
And then mark it and broach a new key. So when you put that key, the lower gear or the upper gear, it would be advanced.
Okay.
You have to consider that the cam gear, if you're messing around with that a little bit, it runs half the speed of the crank.
Right. So to answer his question about setting that up, you would need the engine with the crankshaft to set it up correctly?
Somewhat, but depends on it. Either one's advanced.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be any problem making a gear that would be advanced.
Yeah.
Somehow, yeah.
Okay. Next question on that, someone said, would you please ask Ed if he knows of any straight 6 300 Ford engines used in racing? Have you ever heard of that?
300 Ford 6?
Yeah.
We've had some in a Maverick.
Okay.
It was 2 4-barrels.
Okay.
Yeah, Clifford Research makes an intake manifold for 2 carburetors on that 306.
Okay.
And they make headers for it, and I'm sure they make a camshaft, and they really run good.
Okay.
Not necessarily really 300 Ford and dirt track racing, but drag racing, sure.
No kidding.
There's some in dragsters. Once you get in the dragster or something, you can do all kinds of camshaft stuff with that.
I know Ford has a Barra engine that in Australia, Ford of Australia.
Yes.
That they stayed with that inline 6 a lot longer.
They did. That, like the Holden, I think it was a Holden motor.
Holden was a GM car.
Yeah, it was a GM car.
That's right. And then
they have some of the Ford.
The Falcon, I think it was.
Yeah, some strange motors, yeah.
Yeah, they had some strange to us.
I don't know how much of that's interchangeable with our American motors. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, well, that's a fun little, those people want to do that research can find it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, next subject matter is on the subject of insulation. We talked about putting something under a carburetor or keeping the carburetor cooler is what the general topic was. So somebody that very much participates on the channel, Jeff Clark, said, do you remember when Mopar had insulation under the intake, or was it Pontiac back in the day when they had insulation actually under the intake manifold? Do you remember anything about that?
They used to put a sandwich under there, a sandwich to keep the heat off, the engine heat off the intake manifold.
Okay.
Yeah, and they had looked like a sandwich, but it was tin foil.
Okay.
Foil wrapped insulation. Like a little bag about so big, maybe about 6 or 8 inches square. And they had that stuffed underneath the intake from the factory.
Right.
That's between the tin. They had a thin tin intake gasket.
Okay.
And Chrysler used to put that package under there to keep the heat off the intake.
Okay.
I think it was also the same thing. Now let's think about that. Tin thing didn't get that hot. If I have to think, I never considered why they put it in there. We just threw it away anyways. Because once in a while we put it back under there when we were working on factory warranty cars or something.
Right.
I think more about it is the intake manifold got hot.
Yeah.
That got hot and heated the other thing. So I remember the intake manifold used to get brown. It got so baked hot, almost not necessarily red hot, but with the exhaust gaskets were going through the head, and then those heat ports up into the intake manifold. And so once they got in there, then to keep that heat off there, off the intake. And it was the intake was getting hot.
Okay.
And because half the time you took the intake off, it was cracked.
Okay.
From being hot.
Right.
Especially, the bigger intakes like the 455 Oldsmobile intakes.
Yep.
I used an aluminum one.
Oh,
almost every one you took them apart was cracked.
Oh, wow.
And they forgot to plug those heat things like we
the heat riser plugs,
putting the tin cans underneath the heat risers or something. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's what that sandwich is about, not for your lunch.
Yeah.
you could have probably put a lunch in there, a hamburger in there, and cooked it good, so whatever.
Yeah. Do you happen, and I know you're probably not going to have all the numbers here, but our friend Keith Tobin was asking, he enjoyed hearing about the lifter diameters on the Ford being a bit bigger than the Chevys.
Yeah.
He also heard that Chrysler or the Mopar lifters were the biggest yet. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know. I have something in there. I can measure them, I guess.
Yeah, we haven't measured them.
Yeah, we haven't measured them. But I don't know. I think the Mopar lifters, somewhere it seems like they would be a little shorter lifter.
I see.
I think they're shorter
in height. Yeah.
In height, and possibly I know the Ford, the Chevy lifter is almost the same height
as the Ford, and that's why you'd exchange them.
Yeah, with that oil, lifter got its oil in the oil galley. With that lined up, you'd have to be really careful on that.
Sure. Can you ask Ed if an engine's cylinders get fuel washout? Is there anything you can do other than tearing it down and ball honing it? What can you do if you've...
Not much.
There's not much you can do.
Once they're shiny, they're shiny.
Yeah, you can't...
Yeah.
You can't do much.
Yeah. I shouldn't say this, but I did. We did one time. We had one of this, maybe in 1964. And you always heard that, the old wives' tale, the guy knew more about it than anybody else. Thought he did, at least, anyways.
Yeah.
And we were young. I was probably maybe 20 or something, like 21 or something in that area.
Yeah.
The city of Glendale had a truck, and a Dodge truck.
Okay.
6-cylinder. And it used oil like smoke like you wouldn't believe.
Okay.
And so me and the other mechanic, he was a young guy too, and he says, okay, he says, we're going to fix this thing up. We're going to tear it apart anyways and put rings in it. And we're going to see what happens here, because we were interested on somebody else's.
Some experimenting.
Yeah, it didn't cost nothing. So anyway, we took a little Binami powder, like a Binami. It was a little bit like
Binami, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So we mixed that up with some, I think, solvent. We mixed up a can, and so one guy revved it up and stayed in the truck and revved it up, and the other guy poured it in the carburetor.
Okay.
And so and just see how much. And I think what the problem was, we mixed up a batch for V8 instead of 6-cylinders.
Maybe a little too much?
Yeah, a little bit. So we ran it for a few minutes. Of course, it was rev it up, keep it revved up, keep it running. Push it, quit running, and it wouldn't start again.
Okay.
So we took the tow truck and towed it down the back street, and I think we finally got it running. It made all kinds of noise and stuff. So we were in the process. The truck probably had a couple hundred miles on it. It was brand new. Oh yeah, it was a brand new truck. So under warranty, we took it all apart. I never seen things so polished up my whole life.
Oh yeah.
The cylinder walls were chrome. The wrist pins were chrome. It didn't get any oil. It got on the pistons and rings. But it wore the wrist pins right out.
No kidding.
They were sloppy. Looked like it had 300,000 miles on those wrist pins.
Wow.
And it was really nice and clean. The valve guides and everything, valve stems and everything were all nice and clean. So
wow.
Really, we polished them right up. Doing a Portland polish job there in about 5 seconds. So we ended up, we sent it over to the machine shop and had it all bored out and redone. It ran fine ever after. But we mixed up a batch for V8, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That was the only problem we had. Other than that, it worked fine. So by experience, yes, I do know what happened.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to know why you need crosshatch in the cylinder walls.
Yeah, we figured that out right away. They're all right out there. And we're going to go back to the Total Seal rings.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't know anything about it, call them, Total Seal. If you want precision now, you can get general information anybody in the auto parts store and the mechanics. But these people at Total Seal Ring, they've been my friends forever, and it's a whole science all by itself.
It's a big science. Yeah.
If you want the correct way to do it, there's nobody else that would do it but Total Seal.
Yeah.
Some of the other people used to try it many years ago.
Yeah.
With a Dyke ring.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what that meant, but it was a ring, different rings we used to try once in a while. Now I think same time we were messing around with total sealing and experimenting.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so that you just landed right into the next question, and that was, ask Dennis, have you ever played with pouring water in an engine while it's running?
Pour water?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay.
But you can't compress water.
Right.
It takes all carbon right out of it.
Okay.
Anytime you got carbon in the corner, somewhere in the corner of a piston, now that's just piston and chamber now.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with the valve train.
Right.
Or porting down the intake, it's got nothing to do with it.
Right.
But a little bit of water like that in the same way. We've run water injectors. I talked to somebody the other day, and they weren't really familiar with a water injector.
Uh-huh.
And we've ran water injectors on our motorhomes forever.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. I have a new Edelbrock one sitting right over there on the bench.
Okay.
Still in the box. And Edelbrock made them. And actually, they were metered to porting, vacuum. And the less vacuum we've had on this Edelbrock was all engineered, the more water. Less vacuum, the more water they would let go in the cylinder wall.
Really? So besides getting rid of carbon,
yeah,
if you're just
it
running
kills the temperature.
It keeps it cooler.
Keeps the engine temperature coldly. A motorhome and pulled up long hills.
Okay.
Like I said, one time I had a diesel truck over here belonging to the Navy man.
Yeah.
And we put a water injector. He's pulling horse trailers to Flagstaff.
Uh-huh.
And I think we put a plastic 5-gallon can in the bed of the truck and put the windshield washer motor in it.
Uh-huh.
In the bottom of that can, and piped it up there. And of course, we had to keep it below the carburetor or people flow.
Yeah.
So it didn't siphon it, fill up the engine when you park somewhere.
Sure.
But I think he used almost 5 gallons of water going to Flagstaff.
No kidding. Yeah, that's what, just a 2-hour drive or so.
It's 2 hours.
Yeah.
Depends on how fast you're going.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Because he went as fast as he could up the hill, and everybody else was going 5 miles an hour, and he probably was going 50.
Yeah, right. Excellent.
But that's an awesome thing, and I would use it today.
It's Aaron Warner. Small block Chevy, mechanical, returnless fuel pump. That's the old style. A fuel pump without a return. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay, fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you have to worry about vapor locking, or do you need to return to the tank? Is it better to have a return to the tank?
Depends on what you're doing. Vapor locking is something else. Usually it wasn't very often it was really vapor locking.
Okay.
It had some other problem had to do with it. Maybe the fuel filter in the tank, or where the lines went. You'd almost have to lay them right on an exhaust pipe or the tailpipe or something, right on it to get any kind of vapor locking.
Okay.
But the best thing they come out was that return system. And even I think one of the engines had a return system on a fuel filter.
Oh, really?
Come up with the filter. But anytime you return fuel, but you got cold, fresh fuel right up to that whatever you're to return it at.
Right. So it allows it to pump an abundance of fuel.
Yes.
And put extra back just to keep more cool.
Yes.
Moving.
Keep the fuel cooler.
I see.
Anytime you can cool fuel, we're going back to that same thing as every fuel, gasoline or something expands 10 degrees for every 100 degrees.
Right.
So if you went from 0 to 100 degrees, you'd have 10 gallon more.
Right.
Whatever else.
And someone pointed out the ethanol in our gases makes it even worse.
It makes it worse,
even more.
Yeah, because you need more gasoline to run it.
Yeah.
But the thing with that, even that little metal fuel filter had a return back in the tank.
Okay.
Kind of clumsy to have that back there because you got another line going back to the tank. It could break and because it gives you a problem. So it really wasn't a good idea, but unless it was on a street rod or something where you were close to the gas tank and not occurred in the back of a station wagon or something. But the fuel pumps are something else, and you probably end up with, there's all kinds of things on fuel pumps, is the carburetor and even technical, where the float level set.
Yeah.
And where the float level is set higher or lower. If you have the float level lower, it's going to put more pressure on the needle and seat.
Really?
Yes, because, and if it was higher, then it's, the fuel's higher, you'd have less pressure on the needle and seat. To let that fuel flow in there. It's just like a strong arm, the leverage on that float, hinge pin on the float.
Okay.
Yeah. So now some of our things, it's a little bit, we'll step aside a little bit on that.
Okay.
Even some of our motors, race car motors on our dirt track cars, we had a manual valve. And we put a jet in that system, and we run a 12-pound pump on a needle and seat that would only hold 6 pounds.
Okay.
So the manual valve, we would pull the driver would pull the manual valve back like a ball valve, and return all the oil, to return all the gas back to the tank except 3 pounds. We put a jet in it. So it idle and run on 3 pounds. And then he was racing, he would actually open the valve coming off turn 1 down the main stretch and actually flood the motor.
Wow.
Overflow the needle and seat. So we got more gas through our carburetor than we were supposed to. Instead of a 500 CFM intake manifold with small, where you couldn't modify or something, we flood the carburetor over. So we got plenty of gas going down the main stretch. And you get to the corner, you pull the valve back and run on 3 pounds again. So that's just part of it. It's a little technical there, but you end up with this. I've seen so many people with freezing up the fuel.
Oh, the
vapor lock.
Vapor lock, yeah.
Vapor lock. It was something else problem with the engine that had vapor lock.
Okay. So if you're having real big vapor lock problems, there's a different thing.
There's a different something, there's a different story.
It's not just your fuel pump or something like that.
Yeah, it's not just the fuel pump,
I got
you. And then the other thing too is with our race cars and drag races, I see so many people that they have a big fuel pump on it where you have to run, per class, you have to run a stock fuel pump. Then they put an accumulator and the fuel tank and the fuel line between the fuel pump and the needle and seat.
Okay.
That'd be a can or a container. It takes that pulse, the fuel pump pulse, off the needle and seat.
Oh.
That needle and seat don't like fuel pump pulse.
It wants
going down the road 60 miles an hour, that fuel pump is pumping that pulse like a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Against the needle and seat. They don't like that.
Right.
So you put a can in there, a reservoir, maybe 3 or 4 inches long and 2 inches in diameter.
Okay.
It holds the same pressure and everything else. It takes that fuel pump pulse off the needle and seat.
Okay. Interesting.
I've seen some of those, and those guys, when they raced the car, they usually won the class and won everything. But they knew exactly what they were doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's all kinds of things you can do. Have fun.
Yeah.
Try something.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, that's a good place to stop for today. Okay. But Ed, thank you for answering all these questions once again. And by the way, I like your hat.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good hat.
Somebody might be able to...
Different colors. I have a maroon one, a red one.
Yeah, we got some...
Black one?
Black one's what we're doing. It's black today.
Black today. Maybe green tomorrow. That's nice green hat.
I like it. Well, thanks again. And thank you all for staying with us, for watching, for liking our videos, for all your kind words. Ed's got a big fan club. People are enjoying him sharing
we're having fun.
Wisdom. That's very good, Ed. All right, and we'll see you again next time. Hey, guys, thanks a lot for subscribing. What you can do, if you don't mind, if you need a Christmas gift, we have hats and shirts available. And if you want to email me, I have some stickers and magnets that we can also send in the mail pretty easily. Anything like that all helps the channel out, and it is very much appreciated. So thanks for your consideration on that, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.